Let's see how you do under pressure. Oh, yeah, I've been wanting this forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay, hey, yeah, ain't no errors, baby, it's a new era. I wake up early, feeling rich like I'm Kesha. I get to the paper, boy.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back into another video podcast to talk about our favorite team, the Arizona Cardinals. But today we got a special one, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be doing a behind the enemy's lines and talking Cardinals versus Rams week 2 opponent. And y'all, we got a good one for you today. We got a Rams expert up in the house. And if you guys follow here, the NFC West Roundtable going live every Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Arizona time. You do know Jake Ellenbogen, which we're going to be bringing up here right now. We're going to be talking everything Cardinals versus Rams. Jake, what's up, buddy, man? How you doing?
I'm great, Mike. How you doing, man? Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Appreciate you, obviously for jumping on and talking this up, because I think this is going to be a very fascinating game. We've said this before, two teams back against the wall. Nobody wants to lose this game, so there's just kind of brings the level of enticement to this game. So I'm excited to have you on. And I want to chop everything up to you tell me who this Rams team is, what you've seen versus the Lions game, and man, how many injuries are you guys going through? Let's actually first start off with that, shall we? Jake, talk to me. How are you feeling about what's happening with the injuries on your team right now?
It's a lot, Mike. I'm not going to lie to you. It is a lot. It is a little concerning. It sucks because I felt like they had a lot of depth in these areas. Now they're just getting pelted with injuries. They come in, they have 2 suspensions before the dust even, started to accumulate. You have Jimmy Garoppolo suspended until week 3, and you have Alec Jackson, their starting left tackle, only gave up 28 pressures and a sack last year, and he isn't back until week 3 either. So that we found that out right before the season, okay? And then Joe Noteboom, who filled in for Alec Jackson, who was initially signed to be the starting left tackle, he gets hurt in the Sunday night game against the Lions, ruled out immediately, right? Ankle issue. I don't think he'll play. I really don't expect him to play. I think it's going to be at least 2 weeks at least for Noteboom. They just put Steve Avila on IR. He was initially going to be the center, spent all year at center, all offseason at center preparing there. He moves over to left guard right before the game. No idea why. They decided like 5 days before they were going to move Jonah Jackson to center. Well, of course, Avila gets hurt. Noteboom gets hurt. You have AJ Arcuri, who was called up from the practice squad, now starting at left tackle against Aiden Hutchinson, which is not a good matchup. Jonah Jackson moved over to left guard to try to help him out, being that veteran presence there. And now center, you have Bo Limmer, who's starting at center, who's a very, we're very excited to have him, guy that I raved about in NFC West Roundtable, guy that I always joke about with Jesse because he wanted him so badly. Get him in the 6th round, and now he's starting. He's probably going to start this week. And it's wild. So Kevin Dotson actually ended up leaving their star right guard and ends up leaving the stadium in a walking boot. So they're optimistic for him to play, but the fact that even came up, it's like, really? And all that, and I didn't even mention Rob Havenstein did not play, and he's their starting right tackle. He's the longest tenured Ram and the last remaining St. Louis Ram. So he's been huge for them, and unfortunately, he couldn't play. So you had Warren McClendon Jr. there, you had AJ Arcuri, you had Bo Limmer at center, and you had your 2 veterans at guard. It's been a lot. Puka Nacua went down. Darius Williams, he is, because of his hamstring issue, 3 days before, I think actually 2 days before, he's placed on IR. So their number 1 corner, Darius Williams, who's been huge in the past, he just came back. He's out. So now you're playing with Trey White, who's coming off a major injury. And you're playing with, Kobe Durant, who was dealing with soft tissue stuff. He left the game not left the game. He finished the game. He shows up on the injury report with a foot or toe injury. And it's just nonstop. Tyler Higbee tore his ACL in the playoff game. He's not fully recovered. There's just a lot of stuff going. I mentioned Puka Nacua, and yeah, it's just been a lot. Darion Kendrick, who's one of the starters last year, he tore his ACL before the season even started. So just injury after injury after injury, man. It's been a lot.
You're going through the ringer. I'm telling you, I thought we had it bad. You guys, nowhere compared to what you guys are going through. So
Yeah.
Let me ask you this real quick. I ended up catching the post game from Matthew Stafford. And it's such a fascinating. Matthew Stafford plays against the Lions, and then Jared Goff playing against the LA Rams. What is the sense of, I guess, that rivalry? Just, I guess, real quick, I just want to touch on that. I know it's this Cardinals Rams, but I just so fascinating with, like, because one of the media ended up asking him, "Are you tired of the Jared Goff chants?" And he said, "Yeah." Like, I mean, like, how do you think that he's like putting these games on a pedestal, or like, do you think it's in his head? How do you feel about Matthew Stafford and I guess playing against the Lions?
Well, I know he was really ticked off about the way things went down in the playoff game. Not that he expected to be cheered for or anything, but I think the booing probably was a little annoying. Like the clapping when he was down on the ground in pain and everyone's cheering, I think that bothered him. And then, I mean, these guys are brothers at the end of the day. It's a brotherhood. And, when you see a teammate that you've gone to battle with the whole year and you know what he's gone through, and you meet his family, you get to know his family, you care about him, and that's Tyler Higbee, and you see him take a cheap shot in the knee from a guy who has a history of doing it. There's a reason why TJ Hawkinson isn't available this year. It's the same guy, Kirby Joseph. I feel like a lot of those things combined really got to Stafford. Not getting any calls. I mean, finally got a call. Adrian Hill's crew finally. We always laugh about it irritatingly, but we always laugh about it as Rams fans because basically Matthew Stafford doesn't get late hit calls. He finally got one. So in that, I think that playoff game had him a little fired up. The way it ended is like, all right, let's go out there and we're going to get revenge. And then I think, unfortunately, and this is the way the NFL is, just normally not in week one, they didn't really get a chance to get revenge because they were dealing with all these injuries, and they came back from a 17-3 deficit, and they should have won the game. They didn't get it done. Now you move on and you try to win as many games as it takes to try to give yourself another opportunity, maybe to play the Lions. But, the main goal here is to win the Super Bowl. I think, to answer your question, when it comes to this, this rivalry, I think it's very player and fan induced. I think Goff versus Stafford is very media driven, but I think a lot of the fans who initially, keep in mind, a lot of the Detroit fans or Rams fans honorarily during the 2021 to 2022 season to root for Stafford to win his first ring. And then after that was like, he got his ring. And I think it kind of set in on Lions fans, like, yeah, we're really happy for him, but when you see him hoisting that Lombardi trophy, that's not the Lions. That's not our team. So
Right.
in a way, it's almost kind of like when, Kurt Warner was a, Arizona Cardinal, and I rooted for him like he was on the Rams. And, I still would have been stoked for him to win the Super Bowl against the Steelers. Really bummed that he didn't. But maybe, and I'll never know because I never got to experience it, but maybe if he won that Super Bowl, I would have had the same feeling like, oh, that was awesome. But man, the fact that the Rams gave up on him, that bothers me. So yeah, I think it's just really that, Mike. I think there are multiple layers to it. Some fans take it wicked personally.
Right.
And I think there somewhere in the middle, I think is an acceptable amount. Understanding that these are two really good teams. They're probably going to be two of the top NFC teams this year. I think that's really what it stems from. And then going out and they got, Brad Holmes before this even happened, the third guy in command with the Rams who had been there since 2003. And they get him as their GM. They get Michael Brockers and of course Goff, and, they added some players, and, eventually they got Aubrey Pleasant. That didn't work out well. Aubrey Pleasant's back with the Rams. So I think there's a lot of connections to the Lions that's where that's where it leads you. And I mean, the Rams got Jonah Jackson. So I mean, there's something there, but yeah, it's very interesting. I would definitely say it's a rivalry. I understand people trying to discount it. It's not the 49er Ram rivalry. It's not Seattle Ram rivalry. It's not even the Arizona Cardinals and Rams rivalry. No matter where, Rams fans want to say the Cardinals are, division rivalry is just our king. You play them twice a year, but it's right below all of those. I genuinely feel that way.
Wow, thank you, Fred. Thanks. I know you weren't expecting that question, but okay, let's talk about Cardinals Rams here. I know you guys have been through a lot of injuries that's currently going on right now. With Puka Nacua down, who is going to be that guy that the Cardinals should look after? Let's not talk about Cooper Kupp. I think that's an obvious choice, but who's the guy that we need to look out for, saying this is going to be the guy that's going to burn you guys? Who's that guy?
Well, I'm not going to say Cooper Kupp or Kyron Williams because you already know that, but I would probably say I was really, really, really impressed with Tyler Johnson. Just a guy that just stepped right in there, next man up, made a huge play. It was a 63-yard catch and run. I mean, he forced missed tackles left and right. There is actually a funny little meme that people are throwing out now, Rams fans. There's like 3 Lions all like hitting each other at the same time because he totally juked them out of their shoes. But it's been a next man up league. It always has. But with the Rams, it's always been that way because you've seen guys step up. Demarcus Robinson last year, he's another guy you have to look out for. But I think in this game, Tyler Johnson, I kind of want to lean towards here because I was just so impressed to see 18 out there and just he didn't really get a lot of opportunity. When you talk about, last year, he only played 1 game. He played week 18, bench players against the 49ers. So I don't know. It's interesting. But yeah, I would probably say on the offensive side, because you're probably not thinking about him, Tyler Johnson. And fun fact, this is a guy that played meaningful games in the postseason. Tom Brady, if you remember that infamous pass interference call, Mike, against the Packers, he threw that to Tyler Johnson. So a lot of people might have forgotten Tyler Johnson, but that is him. So he's been kind of all over the place, but he's a good receiver. And I think him getting the opportunities he got, you probably will see Atwell. You'll probably see Jordan Whittington. But I can see Tyler Johnson really emerging now with Puka Nacua's absence. On the defensive side, the guy you have to worry about, in my opinion, is Jared Verse. You probably already are aware of Jared Verse, obviously, but Verse looked good. I'm not even going to hold back on this. He looked like an alpha male. He looked like an alpha dog for that defense. You need it. You lose. How are you going to get to the quarterback without Aaron Donald? He was going up against Taylor Decker, who is a top 10 left tackle. I think that's fair to say. And he had, I think, 6 or 7 pressures in that game. I mean, really impressed with what we saw out of him. You're going to have to be able, Paris Johnson has a big responsibility to contain Jared Verse. And another thing with Jared Verse is his ability to set the edge. When you're trying to run to the left side, he's not going to let you. So I was really impressed with Jared Verse. I was really impressed with Tyler Johnson. Those are the 2 guys I'd be looking out for if I'm an Arizona Cardinals fan.
Okay, and I want to apologize here real quick. I think there's people saying there's an echo, but I think it gets fixed when I mute myself. So you might not hear me, Jake, when you're asking me a question, but you'll see because I have myself on mute. But okay, Jared Verse looked like an absolute freak, and I think that's definitely one guy that I'm really curious about. Fisk, how did he look?
So it's tough because I thought Fisk would look a little bit better, but then I really had to think about it, and I'm like, guys, Frank Ragnow is the best center in the league. So, maybe I was a little too quick to jump the gun there. He looked good. He looked like a guy that is going to get better as the season goes on. This could be an interesting matchup because I don't think the Cardinals have a bad offensive line, but it's not the Lions' offensive line. So I think Fisk could really show up in this one. I think when you look at Fisk, it's really just the nonstop motor. And he might get, stifled at the point of attack, but he'll find a way to get through. And, more importantly, the things I was seeing is when somebody, ran right by the linebackers, Fisk was able to clean that up. He's a really good athlete. Short area quickness is there. The explosion, you see it. So his best football is still, still waits. And I mean, it could be this weekend when he really just emerges, because it was a really tough matchup, to be fair. We're talking about Verse going up against a top 10 left tackle. We're talking about Fisk going up against the number one center in football. So it's a tough assignment for anybody.
No, absolutely, and I appreciate the little insight here that you're providing here. Obviously, with the Los Angeles Rams, one of the big opponents for the Arizona Cardinals heading into Week 2. We talked some offense, we talked some injuries, we talked some defense. What is the next? I guess Matthew Stafford I feel like has done it, right? He's got the Super Bowl. I was gonna say, what's his next step? We already know another Super Bowl. That's probably what his next step is. Let me talk to you about the run game that you guys have going on right now with Kyren Williams. I think when you unleashed him on us last year, it was game over. Do you expect a game plan to be very similar to what we saw last year compared to the Cardinals this year?
So it's interesting because, Mike, I'll tell you right now, the Rams were trying to run the football against the Lions, but the Lions lined up in essentially these structures on defense that forced the Rams' hand. They had to throw the football. They were really just making it so, like, they're almost baiting them, right? There were these opportunities, guys were wide open, things like that. And they wanted to run. But Sean McVay even said once the offensive line started to get injured, they threw the game plan out the window. You just kind of have to go survival mode at that point. And unfortunately, that meant Kyren Williams wasn't going to be able to have the game that they were hoping he would have. Because I do believe with a healthy offensive line, I mean, we saw earlier in the game, he was running well. A healthy offensive line, they're running over, the Lions defense. But in this game, again, not as stout of a run defense as the Cardinals, but I do think, you saw some moments, especially with James Cook. I thought he really got going. I would say they're going to try to get Kyren Williams going, because why wouldn't you? How many yards do you have against the Cardinals last year? Over 200?
Don't remind me. Yeah, everything around there.
Something like that, right? So, I mean, I could see them getting him utilized more in the passing game as well if the run game's not there. It kind of simulates having a run game, the short passing attack. But I would say they're going to get him going. I think Dotson is going to play. I think Jonah's going to play. And I think Havenstein is going to play. And having 3 of the 5 starters you came into the year with, that's going to be enough with Bo Limmer at center and Warren McClendon Jr. at left tackle. And seeing as they're not an outside zone running scheme, really, they focus more on gap. I think it's going to help, because if Warren McClendon Jr. is your weak link, right, you're not going to have to run to the left side, right? You're going to want to go to the right side. You're going to want to go towards Havenstein and Dotson. That's where they had the most of their success, period. Last year, that was where they had the most success. So that's how I see it. I think that's kind of the direction that, they'll go in. I definitely think they're going to be able to get Kyren involved in the run game. The question is, for me, are we going to see Blake Corum at all? Because we were expecting to see Corum, and I didn't see him once. You did not see him once. No one saw him once. Ronnie Rivers got 2 carries for 16 yards. That's 8 yards per carry. And they're like, nope, we're good. That's all we needed. But Kyren played the majority of snaps. He had 77 snaps, I believe it was. So he played the majority of the snaps on Sunday Night Football. So I think at some point or another, their plan coming in was to try to keep him fresh. That's why they got Corum. That's why Ronnie Rivers, who took another step in his development, that's why that they were really excited about those 2 guys. I think with the Lions game being as big as it was, prime time, they felt like they had to keep him out there. In this game, with all due respect, I think they're going to try to get those other guys involved. This is going to be an all hands on deck type of game, though, because when you have those injuries, regardless if, you're like, oh, yeah, they made it. The injuries are fine. Havenstein, Dotson, they could get injured again. That's the common misconception, is that, was Puka Nacua rushed back? We'll never know. But Puka Nacua is more likely to get hurt because he spent his offseason, instead of revving up, not, it was against his will, but instead of revving up for the NFL season that awaited, he's now spending the offseason trying to rehab, his PCL injury. He re-aggravates that. So that's kind of the thing, and that's my concern. And another big concern I have, walking boot with Dotson, He had, he has an ankle. Havenstein has an ankle. I think Jonah Jackson had an ankle injury. So I don't like ankle injuries on offensive linemen. I feel like those linger. That's going to be something we're going to have to look out for.
Wow. Let me ask you two more questions here. One of them is going to be, what do you think right now? And I know we only have a small sample size, right, of week one. If you would say, I'm a part of the Cardinals organization, this is what I can do to beat the Los Angeles Rams, what is that thing that the Cardinals need to expose you guys on?
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of saw it, right? The explosives, if you can, beat, a Trey White or Kobe Durant on a double move, that's going to be huge. And we saw that with Jamison Williams. Those explosive plays changed the game, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is if you can run the ball against the Rams, because I thought the Rams, despite what people are saying, and I understand, all people care about is the end result. I get that. But you have to add context here. Okay? That's the reality. You have to add context here. And the context is this. Okay? You can say, yeah, they ran right down the Rams' throat in overtime. But I would also tell you 40 of the 90-something yards that Montgomery had were on that drive. An exhausted defense. I like that Chris Collinsworth said it best when you looked at the two teams. These teams, week one, are not meant to play in overtime. Some of these teams can't even make it through 4 quarters, right?
Yeah.
They're gassed. So I think that's a big deal. And I think when you look at the run game, I know a lot of people are going to say they were terrible because that's how they remember the ending. But in between is really what they were. And in between job of stopping the run, I don't think they get enough credit for it. The linebackers are not sexy big names, and people saw Ernest Jones leave, and they're like, why'd they do that? There was a reason. They clearly thought that Troy Reeder and Christian Roseboom and the guys they had in-house had a better camp than Ernest Jones. It wasn't a contract thing. They moved on. It's that simple. They had a better, everyone has to earn their place. And this is different, unlike the New York Yankees that I cover, where if you get paid a lot of money, you play. But with the Rams, and Sean McVay made this clear, you have to earn it every year. And you could say, well, Kupp doesn't have to. Yeah, he does. If Kupp showed up overweight, if Kupp showed up and he wasn't good at all and he couldn't catch anything, they would move on from him. Todd Gurley had injuries that screwed him, right? They decided Todd Gurley wasn't worth keeping anymore. They cut Todd Gurley. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, because you saw Todd Gurley. I mean, this is what I'm talking about. So the Ernest Jones thing, I understand people are going to look at Troy Reeder and they're going to look at Christian Roseboom and think these guys are just nobodies. They balled out on Sunday night. I was super impressed with them. The combination of Byron Young on the stunt, getting the sack, Jared Verse playing the way he did. I thought Kobe Turner didn't play the game that he was probably hoping for. He's got in my opinion, I think this is a juicy matchup for the, front four. And then I think the corners just played a hell of a game. We talked about it over on, my channel. Amon-Ra St. Brown, holding him to 3 catches, 13 yards. I mean, who does that? That guy is normally a shoo-in for at least not 80 catches, 8 catches, like 100 yards and a touchdown, right? That's like his go-to, stat line. So what they were able to do holding him down and everything was a big deal. Sam Laporta as well. So I think this Rams defense, while a lot of people looked at it as, oh, this is an opportunity to beat this team and drill them and put them 6 feet under, I kept saying, I think it's a really lazy narrative to just say they don't have Aaron Donald. That's why I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. This is a really good looking defense. Mike, I'm going to say this. This is going to upset you and a lot of Cardinals fans. I hate to break it to you. They are 8 weeks ahead of where I thought they would be. This defense is 8 weeks ahead. They are that good. What they did against the Lions, that was no joke. Lions fans will say, well, we were rusty. I don't give a rip. The Rams were rusty, and they still put up almost 400 yards. So with all those injuries on the offensive line, I think truthfully, I think the Rams defense is a lot better than people realize. And that was just a little bit of a preview of what's to come.
Definitely fascinating to see what Jared versus. He definitely looked like a dog. Man, I definitely worried about that for sure. This game is very important for both teams. Let me know your final prediction before we let you go. And let us know how you think the Cardinals are going to win. I'm just kidding. Go ahead and give us a prediction.
Yeah, so I definitely have the Rams winning. I think it's going to be a close game. I think the Cardinals will compete. As you know, I'm one of the higher people on the Arizona Cardinals that you could be. I mean, they're not people picking them to win 10 games, but I have them winning 7. And I think it's a really good year moving into next year where I think they could win 10, 11 games. We'll see. But I have the Rams winning this game 27-13. I think it's going to be like a 20-13 ball game. And then the Rams get, a touchdown in the last few minutes of the game, kind of make it look a little bit more, beat than they really were. But I think the Cardinals showed a lot in that. You cannot look at that Bills loss as a failure. And this is where I will push back on anybody that says there are no moral victories. That's BS. Because what the Rams did against the Lions with all those injuries and what the Cardinals did going to Buffalo and playing against Josh Allen, I don't care that Stephon Diggs is gone. I don't care about some of the pieces that they lost. You're still seeing Von Miller. You're still seeing Gregory Rousseau. Am I right? Like, this is still a good team. I know they didn't have Matt Milano. That could have helped, but this is still a good team. James Cook is one of the best running backs in football. Like, the Bills have a really good team, and I was impressed with the fact not only did the Cardinals hang in there, the Cardinals should have won the game, if we're being honest.
Yep.
Like, if and I said this on, when we recorded on my show, Jonah Williams, if he doesn't get hurt, they win. So say what you will about the Arizona Cardinals, but they do not look at that game and say there are no moral victories. That's an absolute failure. It's not a failure. Absolutely not a failure.
Well, Jake, appreciate the kind words. As always, thank you so very much for jumping on. We are going to be live later on today, 6 p.m. Arizona time on the NFC West Roundtable for you. So all you people here in the chat and on the X/Twitter world, make sure you go ahead and have your post notification and subscribe over there, man. Subscribe. It's a very, very good show. I'm excited to see how obviously the Seahawks representative and the 49ers representative are going to be puffing out their chest because they got the wins in the NFC West. But all right, appreciate everybody for tuning in as always. If you guys haven't already, smack the like button here on your way out. We're going to be closing up shop again. Jake Ellenbogen, go ahead and subscribe over to his channel. We will be having his tag in the description below. If it's not there already, I will be doing it within the next 5 minutes of this ending. So ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate y'all for tuning in as always. Have a great rest of your day, and go Cards.